Perhaps many of you have had the experience. You're driving along late at night, and the hours start to creep by. You look, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock, it's midnight, and you find that you're fighting against your eyelids, trying to muscle your way through and just stay awake until you can get to where you're going and finally take some rest. One such occurrence happened to me whenever I was going to a seminarian gathering just several years ago as a seminarian. I was riding along with Father Kelly in the evening, and we had been at the Current River all day floating with the other seminarians. And we'd been out just a little too long. And so we finally found some dinner, and then we found ourselves on the way to Branson, but it took quite some time to get there from Van Buren. And so we found the hours creeping by. The 10 o'clock came and went. 11, midnight, and even 1 a.m. And both Father Kelly and I were fighting to stay awake because we wanted to reach that final end and final destination, even though we were so drowsy and we just wanted to sleep. The Advent season, it serves as a moment for us to wake up and to recalibrate our life, to wonder if we are truly awake in the presence of the Lord, or have we kind of fallen to where we're starting to become drowsy, or perhaps even fall asleep. The first reading this morning was taken from the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 2 specifically, and he gives this encouragement from the very beginning, that all should approach the mountain of the Lord. Mountains serve importance and an important role in the Old Testament because these are places of encounter. We know that Moses, he would go up the mountain to receive the word of the Lord, even the 10 Commandments, and then he would descend the mountain and come back. But this mountain is different. This mountain is one that is not to be descended. This is a mountain where one is called to stay there forever. And this means that this is the eternal mountain, meaning that place of eternal encounter, which is heaven itself. And so whenever Isaiah is speaking, he's speaking to a people that need to hear of this place of eternal encounter. And notice the words of solace and of consolation. He tells them that swords will no longer be needed. You can beat those into plowshares. The nations will not rise against nation, nor will they train for war again. That the Lord will judge between nations. He will set and impose terms on many peoples. And the final encouragement, come, walk in the light of the Lord. Walk in the light of eternity. Walk in the light of the one who will set you free. And that is why the responsorial psalm plugs in so well. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord, because that is the kingdom of heaven. That is the place that our hearts should long to be forever. Then we move on to the second reading, which is St. Paul in his letter to the church in Rome. And he tells them that you know the time, that the day is coming and the night is long spent. That the day of salvation is much closer than when you first accepted the faith. And this is true of every Christian and every disciple. Because from the moment that we've been baptized to this very moment, the day of salvation, it is closer. Namely, the end of our life and going before our Lord and our God. That day is drawing closer. But then he tells that this means that we should be working and busying ourselves. We don't need to panic and be afraid, but we do need to prepare. So he says to cast off the works of darkness. And these would be symbolic of the works of grief and of shame. And we know that they are grief and shame because they're done at night, whenever we don't want anyone else to see. And so these were the works that he was encouraging them to cast off. Carousing, drunkenness, envy, jealousy, lust, and all sorts of different sins and vices. He says, cast all those away and instead put on Jesus. He says, make no provision in yourself for the desires of the flesh. So what is he saying? He's saying, choose to be of the light so that whenever that day of light appears, whenever the Son of Man appears in all his glory, you will not be shamefaced. You will not be stricken with grief, but you will in fact be ready for him. And then finally we get to the gospel, and there's three primary movements within this gospel. The first, telling about the unpredictability of the day of the Son of Man. So he says it will be like the flood. That they were eating and drinking, they were marrying and getting married up till the day that Noah entered the ark. They paid him no attention. And yet the flood came and took them all. So he said the Son of Man in his day will come in such an unexpected way. And then what's going to happen on the day? There will be a separation and distinction between those that chose to live in the light and chose to live in darkness. The ones who chose to live in the light will be taken up to heaven. Those who lived in darkness will live in the netherworld. And he makes that distinction by the two people in each situation. Two men in the field. One is taken to heaven, one is left in the netherworld. Two women grinding at the mill, and one was taken up to heaven, one was left. So he makes it very clear. This is a day for distinction because there will be separation of the good from the bad. And then he kind of caps it off with this thought. He says, which of you, if the master's house knew, or if the master knew when his house would be broken into, which of you would leave it unguarded? Every master who knew when his house would be broken into would stay awake and vigilant so that it would not be broken into. He says, you must also be prepared. And this central line that defines the entire gospel, therefore stay awake, for you do not know on which day your Lord will come. He doesn't say that to scare us. He doesn't say that because he wants us to live in paralyzing or crippling fear or anxiety. He says it because he wants us to be aware. But what should we take away from this moment, and what should we be considering through this first week of Advent? Well, first, we should be aware that the day of the Lord is coming, as was indicated in the gospel. That day will arrive at some point. We don't know exactly when, but it is important that we know when, or not that we know when, but that we prepare for when it occurs. Because we don't need to busy ourselves worrying, is it tomorrow, next week, or whenever, but we should rather busy ourselves with the work of preparation. The day will come. And so we often treat Advent like Christmas light, or like it's just kind of that thing that the church threw in there and won't get rid of. But it is a season of preparation because it's not just that Advent was so long ago, not just during the time of Israelites, but it's during our time as well. Because we are waiting for the coming of Christ. His second coming, the coming either whenever our name is written in stone out just to the east, or whenever it is that the Lord will appear in all of his glory for all of us in the second coming. We're in a season of Advent, of waiting and anticipation. We should be aware of this because it can define how we live our life. And it should define that we're always ready and continuing to prepare ourselves for that moment. Then speaking of preparation, we could go to St. Paul for a beautiful lens of preparing for that day. What might that look like? Casting out the darkness and bringing in the light. So casting out the darkness, being aware of all of those sins that we might struggle with, all of the vices, whether we have excuse or not, the excuses don't matter. What does matter is that we identify sin, we identify darkness in our life, and we cut it out and we cast it away. Because we don't know when the Son of Man is coming, but we should live as if it could be tomorrow. And that's imperative for us so that we're not caught unaware one day. So we should be paying attention to what St. Paul says. And we don't make excuses. We don't kind of treat the law of God as if it's subjective where we can pick and choose which commandments we like and which we don't. St. Paul didn't say that. He didn't say, get the commandments in order that you like. He said, cast off the works of darkness. Darkness is objective. And that's why we should be aware and we should be paying attention. What are the works of darkness? And what are maybe the works of darkness that have crept in my own life? The grudges, the anger, the frustration, or even the other sins of the flesh, or so many other possibilities. Cast those away. They're stealing away our life, and they're stealing our faith. And instead, put on Christ. Don't put provision for anything else. Put provision on for the one who will make you truly happy and satisfy you. Continue to make your way towards him, the one who is light, so that when his day appears, we won't be stricken with grief or we won't be so shamefaced we cannot appear before a God. But rather, we will be ready and we'll be joyful because the object of our desire has appeared. And then the final thing we could take away from the first reading, you'll notice that last line, it says, come, walk in the light of God. And indeed, we are given that same encouragement, especially in our day and age. Look out around us, how dark it is. Now, maybe not physically at this very moment, but look at all the chaos, all of the evil, all the violence, how gospel values are made fun of and laughed at, and how churches are being burned, and how so many other atrocities are happening in our day and age. Look around. It's not exactly the day of light, is it? And we should be aware of this on a global scale and look and see that, yes, there is a lot of darkness that is threatening us, a lot of evils that are trying to take away the goodness that is there. But maybe we aren't even able to look outside of ourselves. Maybe we're aware of the darkness within. Now, I'm not just talking about sin or vice, but what about so many other things that we struggle with, so many other crosses? What are the fears and anxieties that tend to hold us back? Where are those? Or maybe we do have some grudges. Maybe we've got some things that we don't know about for the future. Maybe we've got troubles in our family. We don't know where it's going to lead. Maybe we are filled with worry or anxiety, wondering what's going to happen or what kind of world we're leaving for our children and our grandchildren. So many things that threaten to take the light. And does the Lord say that we should live in hopelessness or despair, or live as if we are a people consumed by darkness? Not at all. The season of Advent is meant to give us a moment to kindle within our hearts and our souls the light of Christ, to stoke the fire a little bit more, so that even though there is so much darkness and so much evil, so much violence, you name it, it's out there. Even though there is so much of that we will still have the light of Christ burning intensely, and we will never lose sight of the light that is the kingdom of heaven. That even as we face so many evils in our day and age, that we can still continue to be awake and aware. Because my brothers and sisters, we're on a journey. And our final destination may not be Branson, but it should be the kingdom of heaven. But we don't need to be drowsy. We don't need to be found asleep. But we should be awake and continuing to wake ourselves so that when the Lord comes, whether at Christmas time or whenever He comes in His second coming with all His glory, He will find us awake, joyful, and prepared. Stay awake, my brothers and sisters, for we do not know on which day the Lord will come.